They crossed the line, lied, manipulated, humiliated you, and now they want to smile, make small talk, and pretend none of it ever happened. Like you're the dramatic one for remembering the pain they caused. But let's be clear. Actions have consequences, and some people desperately need to learn that. The world is full of individuals who expect forgiveness like it's their birthright, without changing a single toxic behavior. They screw you over, toss out a lazy apology, and wait for you to sweep the pieces under the rug again. But not this time. In this video, I'm going to give you 5 brutally honest reasons why certain people absolutely deserve the consequences of their actions, and why enforcing those consequences is not cruel, it's necessary. Because when you stop letting people walk all over your boundaries, you don't just protect yourself, you send a message that the cycle ends here. If you've ever felt guilty for cutting someone off, second-guessed your right to be angry, or silenced your instincts for the sake of peace, this is your wake-up call. Smash that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to hear will give you the strength to stop explaining, stop excusing, and start reclaiming your dignity. Number 1, they were only sorry they got caught. To forgive is to set a prisoner free and discover that the prisoner was you. But here's the part they leave out. The door only locks behind you if the other person never learns a thing. We live in a culture obsessed with unconditional forgiveness. Scroll through social media and you'll see it everywhere. Be the bigger person. Let it go. Don't hold grudges. And while those messages sound noble, they often serve a darker purpose. They're used to shame people, especially the kind-hearted, the emotionally responsible, and the elderly, into tolerating what should never be tolerated, into becoming endlessly patient with those who continue to harm them. Here's the truth. There is a world of difference between forgiveness and letting someone off the hook completely. Forgiveness is an internal process. It's something you do for your own healing. But consequences, those are external. They're what the other person earns through their actions. When someone wrongs you, whether it's through betrayal, disrespect, or a violation of boundaries, and they face no consequence for what they've done, the message they receive is terrifyingly simple. That worked. I can do it again. Psychologically, people learn by results. Just like a child touches a hot stove and learns not to repeat it, adults, especially manipulative or careless ones, learn what behavior they can get away with based on how others respond. If bad behavior brings them what they want without resistance, they will repeat it. Not because they're evil in some cartoonish sense, but because it works. The cycle becomes dangerous when the person they're hurting believes that forgiveness means immediate reconciliation, instant emotional reset, and zero accountability. That is not forgiveness. That's self-erasure. That's handing your dignity over like it's disposable. This is particularly painful for older individuals. With age often comes wisdom, but also a tendency toward empathy, softness, and giving people the benefit of the doubt. Parents forgive adult children for unspeakable rudeness. Long-term friends dismiss cruel remarks as just how he is. Spouses accept betrayal in silence for the sake of keeping the peace. And all the while, the violator receives the exact outcome they were counting on. No pushback, no consequence. Just more access to your time, your trust, and your peace of mind. Stoic philosophy offers a powerful antidote here. The Stoics taught that we cannot control the actions of others, only our response to them. But that response doesn't have to be passive. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." That strength includes setting boundaries. That strength includes saying no more, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. To forgive someone internally is noble, but to continue allowing them into your life with no accountability is self-betrayal. Here's the key insight. Holding someone accountable isn't cruel. It's reality. It's not punishment. It's not vengeance. It's showing them the mirror. If they lie to you, the natural consequence is that you don't trust them. If they violate your boundaries, the natural consequence is that you create distance. You don't have to scream. You don't need a dramatic confrontation. You simply let their actions write the rules of the relationship from that point forward. This helps them grow too, if they're capable of growth. Someone who's genuinely remorseful will understand that healing requires consequences. They'll accept the damage they caused, and they won't pressure you into pretending it didn't happen. They'll sit in the discomfort of your silence, your distance, your firm boundaries. That discomfort is their teacher. And if they don't, if they guilt you, gaslight you, or turn your boundary into another offense, then you've been given the clearest answer of all. They were never sorry. They were only sorry they got caught. So the next time someone tells you to forgive and forget, remember, forgetting is optional. Forgiveness can happen in silence, but consequences, those are earned. And if someone keeps showing you who they are, it's not your job to unsee it. It's your responsibility to protect yourself from it. Let's move to number 2. Patterns of disrespect are deliberate. I want you to think carefully about the person who has hurt you more than once. Not just a one-time misstep, not a misunderstanding, but a pattern. Maybe it's the sibling who always finds a way to twist the knife during every conversation, just enough to hurt, but never quite enough to cause a scene. Or the adult child who only calls when they need something, but somehow always disappears when you need support. Or perhaps it's that longtime friend who turns cold whenever you're struggling and only reappears when life is good, just in time to take credit for standing by your side. There's a moment, and if you've lived long enough, you felt it. That cold shift inside when something clicks, and you suddenly realize, this isn't forgetfulness, this isn't stress, and it's not an accident. What you've been calling mistakes are actually choices. Calculated, repeated choices. It's like standing in the rain and suddenly realizing the downpour is coming from someone standing above you, holding a watering can and smirking as they pretend to sympathize. A woman I knew, let's call her Evelyn, retired early to care for her ailing husband. When he passed, she found herself more alone than she'd ever been. One of her daughters began calling more often, visiting occasionally, even helping with errands. Evelyn clung to it as a gift. She'd tell her neighbors, "She's really showing up for me now." But over time, that help turned transactional. The daughter started hinting about money, how hard things were, how much she was sacrificing to be there. Evelyn, grateful and guilty, began covering bills. Then came small loans. Then came new credit cards. When Evelyn hesitated, her daughter would vanish for days, only to reappear with apologies and reassurances that she was just stressed. The cycle repeated again and again. What Evelyn didn't see, what so many in her position don't see, is that these cycles of disrespect are rarely accidental. They follow a familiar pattern. First, the boundary is violated. A lie, a manipulation, a moment of emotional cruelty. Then comes the minimization. It wasn't a big deal. You're overreacting. Can't you take a joke? Then there's the temporary charm. Flowers, a call, maybe a kind gesture to make you drop your guard. And then inevitably, it returns. The disrespect resurfaces, the kindness disappears, and the cycle continues. This behavior isn't random. Research and clinical psychology both confirm what the Stoics understood centuries ago. People who benefit from violating others' boundaries rarely stop unless consequences force them to. Why would they change? The system works perfectly for them. And for people like Evelyn, kind, loyal, and terrified of confrontation, the consequences never come. So the damage grows. One of the most powerful tools to begin breaking this cycle is documentation. Not for revenge, but for clarity. The human mind forgets, especially when emotional manipulation is involved. A simple note, date, time, what was said, how it made you feel, can become a mirror. When Evelyn finally wrote things down, she saw the pattern clearly. The promises broken, the timelines of kindness aligning only with moments of financial need. It was no longer a fog of confusion. It was a structure, one that she now had the power to step out of. But even more important than documentation is learning to trust yourself again. That quiet voice inside you, the one that tightens your stomach, that makes you feel uneasy after certain conversations, that leaves you emotionally drained after someone leaves the room. That voice is ancient. It's not paranoia. It's self-preservation. It's wisdom that has aged with you. Stoic philosophy teaches us that suffering often stems not from what happens to us, but from our denial of what is. When we fail to accept the truth of someone's consistent disrespect, we extend our pain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. For I seek the truth, by which no one was ever truly harmed." But it's not your job to change others. Your job is to accept the truth and act accordingly. So if someone keeps hurting you, if their mistakes are starting to look like strategies, it's time to stop waiting for the next apology and start preparing the next boundary. They don't need another chance to prove who they are. You need the courage to believe them the first time and protect yourself accordingly. Now, number 3, boundaries protect your self-worth. Did you know that the human brain physically rewires itself based on repeated emotional experiences, even ones tied to mistreatment? Neuroscience calls it neuroplasticity, and it means that the longer you allow someone to cross your boundaries without consequences, the more your brain begins to accept that treatment as normal. And that's the terrifying part. Over time, it's not just your relationships that suffer, it's your self-worth. Here's something most people don't realize until it's almost too late. Every single time you let someone mistreat you without consequence, you're not just giving them power over that moment. You're reshaping how you see yourself. Every time you bite your tongue when something hurts, every time you excuse their behavior with, "they didn't mean it," every time you swallow the discomfort just to keep the peace, you're sending yourself a quiet but devastating message. My feelings don't matter. My dignity isn't important. My peace is less valuable than their comfort. This self-message doesn't scream, but it spreads like a slow-acting poison. It seeps into every corner of your life. You start accepting treatment that would horrify the younger version of you. You begin convincing yourself that maybe this is what love looks like. Maybe this is all you're worth. But here's the antidote. Consequences. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It's self-preservation. It's not about controlling others. It's about taking control of your own emotional reality. When you say, "If you speak to me that way again, I'll end the conversation," you're not being cruel. You're declaring that your self-respect is non-negotiable, that your peace is not for sale. Let's talk about what that looks like in real life. Healthy boundaries are clear, firm, and unapologetic. Statements like, "I won't accept being spoken to like that. If it happens again, I will leave the conversation." Or, "If you keep showing up late with no notice, I'll stop including you in plans." These aren't threats. They're facts. Simple truths about how you expect to be treated and what will happen if those expectations are ignored. Now, I know what many of you are thinking. Won't they think I'm cold? Won't they get angry? Will I lose the relationship? These fears are natural. But here's the hard truth. Anyone who reacts with outrage to your healthy, reasonable boundaries never respected you in the first place. Their anger isn't about your change. It's about their loss of control. And in some cases, yes, that relationship may not survive. But ask yourself, what kind of relationship is it if it only exists at the cost of your well-being? The more subtle danger comes when people try to emotionally manipulate you into abandoning your boundaries. They might cry, guilt-trip you, accuse you of changing, or promise they'll change. Anything to get you to drop your guard. But this is where your strength matters most. Because boundaries that bend under pressure aren't boundaries at all. They're invitations to be mistreated again. Before we move to the fourth reason, I want to acknowledge something important. If you're still watching this, if your heart is pounding a little harder, if the truth is sinking in, then you're exactly where you need to be. You're waking up. And it's not comfortable, but it's real. This journey toward reclaiming your power isn't easy, but it's always, always worth it. Number 4, enabling is not compassion. What you allow is what will continue. This simple truth should be stamped on every mirror, especially for those of us who mistake enabling for compassion. It's one of the hardest realizations we ever have to face. Sometimes, the pain we feel in a relationship isn't just caused by the other person. It's caused by what we keep allowing, again and again. Let's break something open here, something uncomfortable but necessary. There is a destructive cycle so many people are trapped in, and it's called enablement. And what makes it dangerous isn't just what it does to you, it's what it does to them. You think you're helping. You tell yourself it's love. But what you're really doing is cushioning them from the natural consequences of their choices. And when people are shielded from consequences, they don't grow. They repeat. Imagine this. Someone you care about is slowly poisoning themselves a little more each day. But instead of confronting the source, you quietly clean up the mess, hide the symptoms, and hope they get better. You're not helping them heal. You're making it easier for them to continue. That's what emotional enablement looks like. It's love tangled with avoidance, empathy used as an escape hatch. Here's the brutal truth. When someone hurts you and you forgive them without requiring any real change, what you're giving them is relief, not responsibility. And that relief becomes their permission slip to keep hurting you. The pattern forms quickly. Boundary crossed, apology made, forgiveness granted, and repeat. You both begin to sink into this rhythm of dysfunction, where your hope becomes the very thing that traps you. You hope they'll change. You hope they'll get it. But without consequences, hope becomes helpless. The tragedy is, most enablers aren't weak. In fact, they're often the strongest ones in the room, the ones who can endure the most. But endurance without boundaries turns into self-erasure. You keep explaining, you keep excusing, you keep swallowing your own needs to protect their potential. But potential means nothing without accountability. What if I told you that consequences are one of the most loving things you can offer someone? That holding someone accountable isn't punishment, it's a mirror. It's the only tool that forces them to pause and ask, what am I actually doing? True compassion isn't about shielding someone from the truth. It's about giving them the opportunity to face it and grow from it. And no, this isn't about revenge. Consequences are not the same as punishment. Punishment comes from pain, a desire to make someone feel what you felt. But consequences, they're neutral. They're the natural result of choices. If someone lies, you stop believing them. If they disrespect your time, you stop prioritizing them. If they repeatedly cross your boundaries, you remove access. Not to be cruel, but to be clear. The most powerful shift you can make in how you approach consequence is this: remove the emotion. Instead of lashing out with, "You're selfish and I'm done with you," say, "When this happens, it makes me feel disrespected. If it continues, I won't be able to stay in this dynamic." One blames the person, the other reveals the impact of the behavior. One escalates, the other creates space for change, if they choose to rise to it. That's what real love looks like. It's not soft, it's not sentimental, it's not over-functioning, it's boundaries, it's clarity, it's standing in front of someone and saying, "I care about you, but I care about myself too. And if I have to choose between protecting your comfort or protecting my peace, I will choose me. And if they get angry, if they guilt you, if they cry, accuse, or promise to be better just one more time, that's not your cue to bend. That's your signal that your boundary is working. Because people who are invested in control always panic when it slips away. So ask yourself this: if nothing about this person ever changes, what needs to happen so you can be at peace? Your answer is your truth. Let it lead you. Because enabling isn't kindness. It's slow-motion abandonment of them and of yourself. Real compassion has the courage to say no more. And that might just be the thing that finally sets both of you free. Number 5, reclaiming power and finding peace. Take a moment right now, not later. Right now, think back to a situation where someone repeatedly crossed your boundaries. Don't minimize it, don't intellectualize it, feel it. Remember how it showed up in your body, the tightness in your chest that wouldn't go away, the sick knot in your stomach, the way your shoulders felt heavy, like you were carrying someone else's shame and responsibility. That wasn't just stress. That was your nervous system sounding the alarm, an internal warning that your dignity was being quietly dismantled. And you knew it, but you didn't act. Not because you were weak, but because you didn't yet believe you were allowed to protect your peace. I once knew a man named Carl, a widower in his 70s, gentle and soft-spoken, the kind of person who always made extra coffee in case a neighbor dropped by. His son, grown, charismatic, and always in need, began visiting more often after Carl's health declined. At first, it was framed as help, managing errands, organizing bills, making sure Carl didn't feel alone. But the help came with a price. It started with subtle digs at Carl's memory. Then it was control over who could visit. Eventually, it turned into full-scale decision-making. Money, medical appointments, daily routines, all stripped away in the name of care. Carl didn't say anything for over a year. He said it felt easier that way. He didn't want to start an argument, didn't want to lose the relationship. But what he didn't realize was that he already had. Not because he drew a boundary, but because he never did. This is what happens when we hand over our power to people who misuse it. We become shadows. Our world shrinks, not from age or loss, but from someone else's chaos invading every corner of our mental space. Their moods become our forecast. Their presence controls our behavior. And somewhere in the middle of all that, we forget that our needs are just as valid as theirs. But I want you to imagine something radically different. Picture yourself in Carl's shoes, but this time you stand tall. You look someone in the eye and say, "No, that's not acceptable to me." Not with rage, not with bitterness, but with the calm assurance of someone who finally remembered that their peace is not optional. Imagine the freedom of not bracing for someone else's reaction. Imagine waking up and knowing that your life belongs to you again. That vision, that lightness, that expansion, it's not a fantasy, it's your birthright. And reclaiming it starts with one powerful choice: enforce the consequences. Because setting boundaries isn't about punishing someone else. It's about liberating yourself. When you consistently follow through, something miraculous happens. You stop reacting. You stop rehearsing imaginary confrontations. You stop anticipating disrespect. You begin to live again, with your full energy available to you. Still, it's not easy. When you start enforcing consequences, guilt often shows up like an old friend. You'll hear the voice, "Am I being too harsh? Should I give one more chance?" That guilt doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you've been taught to prioritize others' comfort over your own sanity. But the more you practice, the clearer it becomes. You'll learn to recognize the difference between healthy compassion and the kind of guilt that sabotages your well-being. There's another critical distinction: revenge versus justice. Revenge is about making someone suffer. It comes from pain and often leaves you empty, even if you win. Justice, on the other hand, restores balance. It says, "This is harmful and I won't participate anymore." Justice heals. Revenge hurts. Here's the truth many never learn. The person who hurt you may never apologize. They may never take responsibility. They might continue oblivious or defiant. But their growth is not your assignment. Your responsibility is to protect your peace, honor your truth, and make choices that serve your highest good, whether they change or not. Ask yourself the most powerful question: if nothing about this person or situation ever changes, what do I need to do to create peace in my own life? That answer is your compass. This journey isn't perfect. You'll wobble. You'll doubt. You might slip into old habits. That's okay. Each time you reassert your boundary, you strengthen your integrity. Each time you enforce a consequence, you rebuild trust with the one person who matters most: you. Let's make one thing clear. Mercy is for the truly remorseful, not for repeat offenders who treat your boundaries like a joke. We've walked through 5 cold, unflinching truths: why some people absolutely deserve the consequences of their actions. From the myth of unlimited forgiveness, to patterns of disrespect, to the silent erosion of self-worth through enablement, each one builds to a final truth. You deserve peace more than they deserve another chance. Anyone who expects endless forgiveness without